Delta carriers as of late dropped a sensation reporting their greatest quarterly procuring ever, an incredible 2.5 billion bucks. However, in spite of all the development, it wasn't all. Blushing for Delta, you see, after the turn of the thousand years, they would petition for financial protection in September 2005 because of rising fuel costs. Yet you understand what they say. Difficult stretches try not to last. Extreme individuals do. And Delta demonstrated only that they rapidly reappeared under 2 years after the fact. From that point forward, it's been a story of versatility and win. They figured out the code to productivity when numerous others were battling. Truth be told, their new record-breaking quarterly report is a demonstration of their fantastic excursion. So Delta's winning equation, what is Delta's triumphant equation? Well, Delta's triumphant recipe is by all accounts in light of a fine equilibrium of present moment scaling, joined with long-haul arranging. Also, it's very virtuoso. Really take Delta's as of late arranged 10,737 MAX planes. For example, this request came as somewhat of a shock by a lot of people, as Delta didn't put in a solitary request with Boeing in 10 years. Rather, they've been putting orders with Airbus in bunches of them. Yet there's an explanation for this. You see, Delta looks to profit by a bounce back in air travel. Following the coronavirus pandemic, the carrier has 77 MAX 8s in assistance. The Maximum series is still their biggest transporter in their armada today. Anyway, they're putting resources into the future by requesting from Airbus's A320 and a 220 family. And this is where it gets intriguing. You see, Delta's no more abnormal to development, and they're pulling a virtuoso move by completely embracing Airbus's cockpit plan. They know that with preparing new pilots to work an Airbus plane, Delta broadens their pool of pilots that can apparently fly Airbus planes. That implies Delta would be able to keep on developing considerably quicker, request new planes, and adapt to the developing interest without stressing that their pilots and group are not being prepared into flying new planes. This shows how Delta can adapt with the developing interest, while at the same time checking the long-haul out advantage of Airbus cockpit plan to expect and adjust to the pilot lack. It's nothing unexpected then, how Delta got to develop so quick in the wake of petitioning for liquidation. And it's not just that, since there's one more condition to Delta's triumphant equation, which is based on two basic support points. These two support points are fundamental to Delta's prosperity, and it comes from the truth that they comprehend their clients so well. As a matter of fact, they have limited it down to their two most significant support points, which are getting its clients where they need to securely go. What's more, reliably, this made Delta a pioneer in the dependable assistance for aircrafts. It's nothing unexpected. Then the way that Delta got to become so quick, since this technique has prompted productivity, where numerous others have bombed, particularly if their record-breaking last quarterly report is anything to go by. You see, second and third quarters are normally the most productive for aircrafts because of millions of individuals continuing summer travels. Yet, as it's been said, we as a whole have 24 hours in a day, and it appears Delta seemingly utilized their 24 hours better than different carriers in the last quarter, since they recorded the greatest quarterly benefit in their history. And you can put that down to a number of elements. For example, flights between the US and Europe, which is Delta's definitive abroad jungle gym, saw their income soar by a stunning 65%. That is since individuals are gradually returning to their ways of life from before the pandemic, and Delta is taking full benefit of this. It's not simply Delta. The recurrence of overseas trips for carriers have taken off back to pre-pandemic levels, as individuals long to venture to the far corners of the planet once more. Anyway, Delta didn't stop here and begun pushing their overseas courses, and it took care of. They extended their transoceanic courses, presenting over 600 week-after-week trips across 32 objections in its biggest ever transoceanic summer plan, and expanding their seat limit by 20%. All of this joined with a more than 20 drop in fuel costs against a year ago implied there were higher edges for Delta this quarter, as it's no shock that they've left away with a record benefit of over $2.5 billion. At this point, you can likely tell that the overseas contributions had a huge job to carry out in Delta achievement. What's more, it's for an explanation. You see, the transoceanic course is ostensibly the most well-known and productive course for carriers, since it's handled by some of the most elevated pay workers on the planet. A critical piece of Delta procedure, as a matter of fact, includes seeking after top-level salary voyagers, who represent almost three-fourths of all spending on air travel, and agreeing to some examination major league salary families have aggregated just about $27 trillion in abundance beginning around 2019, which implies there's an additional money to sprinkle for Delta's key segment. Without a doubt, Delta aren't the main aircrafts taking benefit of the overseas course. Mother-lode top aircrafts like American Aircrafts, English aviation routes, and even state-run aircrafts like Emirates have fundamentally raised the stakes in their overseas contributions lately. Anyway, overseas flights aren't the just justification for Delta's record achievement, since Delta has been occupied with winding around a web of associations that is blowing some people's minds also. Changing courses, they combined efforts with LATAM carriers in a joint endeavor that is interfacing Latin America to the U.S. more than ever. Envision more courses, smoother associations, and more straightforward travel for both Latin American pioneers and U.S. joyriders looking for a cut of Colombia or other lovely objections down south. However, that is only the start of Delta's organization procedure. They previously struck a co-seat concurrence with El Al Israel, Delta's tentative arrangements carriers. Now, this isn't simply any handshake. An arrangement permits each aircraft to put their blessing on the other's flights, selling tickets for one another's flights check. And to add to the arrangement, this co-seat understanding allows travelers to partake in the advantages of Delta's long-standing customer program, the Sky Miles, which quickly showed results. This program invited an incredible 3 million new clients last quarter, which returned to back record quarters for the Sky Miles. In spite of these record-breaking accomplishments, Delta have not taken their foot off the gas, and you could say their most aggressive plans are simply beginning thanks to a series of potential airplane acquisitions and changes they intend to make. You see, Delta carriers are presently going through a course of supplanting a portion of their more seasoned airplane. For example, their Boeing 757, 777-207, 67 for the fresher Airbus models like the A320, Neo A330 Neo. Furthermore, the A350, because of their thick timetable and contributions, like their day-to-day relentless administration to London Heathrow, there's a need to adjust to the more appeal in the market, and Delta have carried out a long stretch. Armada re-establishment plan, generally Delta would have recently picked to buy utilized planes. However, the interest for flights, particularly overseas trips, as of now, is higher than it's been for the vast majority of flight's history. Truth be told, we've seen a great deal of aircrafts, spot orders for new planes, so Delta has normally decided not to be forgotten about. They, as of now, have north of 24 Airbus A350s, OOS in their armada, including the second-hand, a 35OS they procured from LATAM carriers, and just about 24 of their new medium to long-stretch fly, the A330 Neo. It seems like the more established Boeing planes simply don't cut it any longer from Delta. This could be on the grounds that they try not to offer a similar premium lodge traveler experience as the new Airbus models, which is the reason there has been gossipy tidbits about Delta attempting to deliberately eliminate their Boeing arrangement and further growing their A330 Neo and a 350 Armada. Anyway, Delta likes to remain nonpartisan over this. Still, you can't resist the urge to see that the administrator favors Airbus over Boeing these days, notwithstanding Boeing offering fresher models too, and it's obvious why, truly, in light of the fact that since the pandemic, there has been a developing pilot deficiency, which Delta appears to have seen very early. This issue has impacted a great deal of aircrafts as of late as they battle to find pilots who can control their planes. Yet the individuals who have picked to utilize the fresher Airbus airplanes have seemingly been less impacted than others. Delta's benefit, why, you could ask? Well, this is on the grounds that all Airbus models, beginning from the A320, have comparative control regulations, functional reasoning, and cockpit formats, which implies it would be more straightforward for an Airbus-trained pilot to adjust to flying different Airbus airplanes, paying little heed to estimate and plan in no time, in spite of the fact that they would really have to finish a 40-day course to make such a progress official. Airbus likewise has a blended, also oftentimes refreshed agenda, which makes it simple for the pilots to respond in instance of a crisis or surprising conditions. Even with every one of these critical benefits the Airbus brings, Delta won't deliberately transition away from their whole Boeing setup as a result of one advantage they have over the Airbus, and that is the transportation of freight. You see, Delta actually plans to proceed utilizing the vast majority of their Boeings economically for the following couple of years in light of the fact that staging out airplanes isn't so natural as it might sound in light of multiple factors. This is particularly valid for the 757 and 767 models, which is still to a great extent utilized for Delta's terrifically significant transoceanic armada. Anyway, these airplanes offer an added benefit as a result of their freight conveying capacities, and there's a major chance Delta will keep on utilizing them for a long time to come as a flex armada and thoroughly turn into utilizing them for freight transport. Whenever they're considered excessively old to give the solace required by travelers, this would be extra useful for Delta as they can reinforce their freight armada without putting resources into another plane. In addition to freight planes are bound to be utilized longer than traveler planes. Sure, Delta requirements to reconfigure monetarily utilized planes to cargo planes. However, checking out at long haul, this will just fortify their grasp on the avionics market, as they would now have the option to totally offer an alternate sort of administration at a significant level. So it's looking very great for Delta in that viewpoint. What not's passed on to know is the way they plan to keep up with their force. Delta is known for superb client support and traveler experience, so it's nothing unexpected that they are America's generally granted aircraft. Yet what apparently stands them out the most is their readiness to work on their inclusivity and their consistency. They are additionally shrewd with regards to pursuing directions, both short and long term, which has helped them effectively explore the issues achieved by the coronavirus pandemic. These shrewd choices drove them to turning into the most productive carrier in 2022 and recording their most elevated quarterly benefit to date, regardless of the truth that flight traffic, while quickly improving, hasn't exactly gotten back to its top yet anyway. Delta isn't checking Europe out. Simply, it's likewise anticipating making new organizations across the globe. One such association will incorporate Africa, which has seen flight traffic practically twofold from pre-pandemic levels across the different districts. And this has prompted an expansion popular for Delta, who have recognized Africa as a district of significance, is on the grounds that Delta has served Africa longer than some other U.S. transporter. So they have serious areas of strength in the mainland. What's more, they plan to increase activities as interest for flights keeps on rising. You can nearly be sure Delta will not stop their extension plans there, and are presumably cooking something different behind the scenes. Yet what they've done as such far has set them in an exceptionally impressive position for the future, from being required to petition for Chapter 11 to becoming quite possibly of the most productive aircrafts on the planet. Delta's assurance client assistance and going with the ideal choices at the perfect time have laid the way for their prosperity. This is by all accounts a staple at Delta Aircrafts, and this has pushed them to the top of the avionics business to turn into one of the most productive carriers in the world yet. Do you figure they can keep up with their ongoing direction and extend their base considerably further into different nations? Or do you feel another carrier could take their spot in the future? Delta's choices have prepared for their current achievement, however, what's to come? Well, that is an intriguing secret pausing to unfurl